Packers plan to use Golden?
Laura, I'm sure you remember Matt LaFleur saying right after they picked Golden that he FaceTimed Jordan Love, and Jordan Love joked that I've got to get that arm loosened up to throw those deep balls to Golden's 4.29-second speed. But in all seriousness, what the Packers love about Golden is his versatility. They think he's more than just a deep threat receiver. Now, I asked LaFleur today, as rookie minicamp started, if he's already started to put things into the offense for Golden. And he said, well, he hasn't done that. He did during the evaluation process tell General Manager Brian Gutekunst, this is how I envision using him. Obviously, Gutekunst must have liked what he heard because he went ahead and drafted him. But LaFleur said one other thing. He goes, I know that there's going to be something positive that pops up that we're going to see that we didn't see on tape that we'll be able to use with Golden. And he's going to start that process here at rookie minicamp when they hit the practice field tomorrow. Now, one note, Laura, about a veteran, the ongoing saga between the Packers and Jair Alexander. They're all pro cornerback. Is he going to play here? Is he going to get cut? Is he going to get traded? LaFleur did say that Alexander was not here this week for the voluntary in-person team activities. That's interesting to note because Alexander did take part last week when they did things virtually. They kept the players away because of all the stuff around here with the draft and logistically. So Alexander was part of the virtual stuff but was not here in person this week.
Yeah, really interesting to keep an eye on. Jeremy Fowler has an update on that in just a bit. And I must say, Rob, Lambeau's looking gorgeous today, okay, as you well know. All right, the Packers have done their best to put solid pass catchers around Jordan Love over the last 4 drafts. They've taken 7 pass catchers in the first 3 rounds, 5 wide receivers and 2 tight ends. However, Matthew Golden is the first receiver they drafted in the first round since 2002, and it's the first time they've taken 2 wide receivers in the first 3 rounds in the common draft era. Somebody's going to say, Aaron Rodgers, where was that when I was here? Anyway, Tim, a lot of receivers for Jordan Love. What do you think, though, specifically about the addition of Matthew Golden?
I think it's great, because he's super talented. I mean, just watching the highlights that we were playing there, you see his speed, and I do think he's, more versatile, as Rob Domofsky was, kind of referring in terms of the optimism, in Green Bay of what type of player he can be. And I would say, I actually think Green Bay has had a pretty good receiving corps, especially when you factor in, their tight ends and the way that they've played. And so, to me, it really wasn't this glaring area of need, other than to say some of these young, productive wide receivers that they've had, they've been injured. And so because of that, I think, getting a dynamic player, young, kind of build, into the room, I think should be really exciting for Packers fans. And so, look, they did that, but they also did other things. They still, addressed the offensive line in the 2nd and 7th round. Like, there are other things that they need to do, but I do believe the continuity in Green Bay and what they're building around Jordan Love, look, I think gives you a lot of optimism for how they're going to fare in the division.
Yeah, listen, Tim brings up a lot of good points. That receiving corps is going to be one of the best, one of the more young and dynamic receiving corps in the league. I think defensively, they've continued to add pieces there, and I think that defense continues to needs to continue to elevate. But ultimately, this falls on Jordan Love. And when you talk about Jordan Love, you talk about a guy who's immensely talented. Sometimes can be reckless with the football. And I think if Green Bay ultimately wants to go to where they want to go and vie for a championship and win that NFC North, I think Jordan Love has to play more consistently. No one has ever questioned the talent that he has, but he just needs to be more consistent. If he can do that with all the pieces that surround Jordan Love, this Green Bay Packers team is as good as anyone.
Indeed, the Packers and Jordan Love got help with drafting Matthew Golden in the first round, breaking serious precedent. Hadn't taken a wide receiver since Javon Walker in 2002. Why did they do that? One team source told me he was, quote, too good to pass up, because I was told Golden in the process figured he would be in that sort of 10 to 22 range, as high as the Cowboys number 12. He was considered one of the finalists among the teams that they were shaking out. So he had a top 30 visit with the team.
Yeah, and lucky for Jordan Love. I think everyone's going to love what Matthew Golden brings to the table. Now, we promised Jeremy an update on Jair Alexander. You heard what Rob Domofsky said. What are you hearing about him right now?
Yeah, Laura, so I was told Alexander and his camp never really expected to be traded, at least up to this point, because in early March, around free agency, the team and the players started discussing some options, like, hey, let's leave the lines of communication open. If we can find a trade that makes sense for the team, we'll do that. So the player talked to some teams, the team talked to some opposing teams to see what the market value would be. A lot of those teams had interest, but they wanted to wait until after the draft. And now they're through the draft, there still isn't a lot of momentum for any sort of deal for Alexander, who, despite being a top 10 cornerback in the league for a long time, is due $17.5 million. Durability is a major issue. So the common sense here might just be that both sides can talk about a new reworked package maybe. Perhaps the Packers can get some salary cap help, get that number down a little bit if Alexander would be willing to do that. Whether he is or not remains to be seen.
Again, Rob Demovsky reporting that he was there for virtual meetings that the team had last week during the draft and then has not been here with the voluntary workouts. We'll keep an eye on that. All right, to our next rookie camp going on today. That's in Philly. The defending champs bolstered their defense with Jihaad Campbell and 5 other defenders who are all out on the practice field today. Pretty cool. The Eagles entered the 2025 season looking to become the 10th team ever to repeat as Super Bowl champs. Overall, there have been 16 instances of a team returning to the Super Bowl the season after winning it. The Eagles will have to get back there without their offensive coordinator from last season, and of course, Kellen Moore. Damian, Howie Roseman keeps rebuilding the Eagles team in the draft. Is that enough, though, for them to repeat? Because they have lost a lot of guys, too, in free agency and otherwise.
Yeah, listen, some of those guys have graduated from the program, but the one thing that Howie Roseman has always done is a master at restocking. Sometimes with Howie Roseman, he's zigging while everyone is zagging. So he goes out here in the first round, he gets Jihaad Campbell, the linebacker out of Alabama. And you're talking about, a guy who's just, ultra athletic, fast, comes downhill. And then all the other picks that they added on the defensive side of the football. So, yes, while they've lost some players on the defensive side, but they continue to restock and retool. And the one thing about this Philadelphia Eagles team, they're strong in all the right places that you need to win football games. They're strong in the trenches. They got elite players on the perimeter. And obviously, we know the Super Bowl MVP and Jalen Hurts. So, this organization from the top down is one of the elite franchises, and they're going to be one of the front runners in 2025.
Indeed, with the retooling by taking young, talented players on defense. You mentioned Campbell. They now have at least 7 starters on the defensive side of the ball on rookie contracts. And Campbell was just great value. He is a luxury at that point, number 31 or 32 overall, falling to them essentially. I talked to several teams that saw him as a top 10 overall talent in the entire draft. It was essentially a durability issue. How long can he play based on the various injuries he's had? He's got a shoulder issue that could cost him some time. The Eagles figure, hey, if he misses time, it's going to be great for us. That is all good. But Howie Roseman is breaking precedent here. The Eagles had not drafted a true linebacker since 1979 in the first round. They had never done it, didn't prioritize the position, typically didn't pay those players a lot. Now Zach Bond got paid, Jihaad Campbell in the first round. So they are clearly trusting Vic Fangio after his Super Bowl performance to develop young players at positions he cares about, like linebacker.
That was Jihaad Campbell, by the way, on the screen. You just saw we're at number 30. Tim, there's so many ways that it can go wrong for teams, right? We know how hard it is to even get to the Super Bowl. What's the biggest challenge as the Eagles try to repeat?
I think surviving losing Kellen Moore. The reality is a couple of years ago, the Eagles lost both coordinators, and they fell apart throughout the season. And then I think it was hard for Nick Sirianni to kind of manage the coordinator changes. They obviously got it right a year ago. Vic Fangio's back. We're talking about him developing young players. Look, continuity is important. And so, look, no Kellen Moore when you're coaching Jalen Hurts, I think is, it's a challenge. I think Kellen Moore, what he did a great job of was bring the stuff that he was good at doing, but not abandon the stuff that Jalen had been so successful doing. And so you combine those two things together and you've got a Super Bowl winning quarterback. And so now when you make the change at that, as a play caller and just, the understanding between quarterback and play caller, I just think that can be a significant change. You see some teams really struggle with it, and I think for Philadelphia it ends up being a hurdle if they want to get back to where they were a year ago.
Yeah, listen, if there's one thing that Jalen Hurts has dealt with is a lot of different play callers throughout his career, not only in college, but in the pros. And Tim, you're right. Like, that is something that bears watching. We know the Philadelphia Eagles are a very talented team. across the board, line of scrimmage, perimeter, Saquon Barkley being, coming back as a 2,000-yard rusher. But anytime you mess up that play caller quarterback chemistry, it's something that you need to watch. But listen, this Philadelphia team, they're strong on both sides of the ball. I think they'll adapt, and we'll be talking about this team at the end of the year.
Yeah, and by the way, Jalen Hurts can become the first Eagles quarterback to appear in 3 Super Bowls. That'd be something else. We're just getting started on NFL Live on this.
Welcome back to Eagles Nest News, the ultimate destination for Philadelphia Eagles fans who live and breathe midnight green. If you're part of the Eagles family, you know that something's shifting in South Philly. And it's not just the off-season wind swirling around Lincoln Financial Field. This past week, the Eagles made waves. Big ones. And we're not talking about just another roster shuffle or a minor depth signing. We're talking about a bold, franchise-altering draft decision that has analysts, insiders, and die-hard fans buzzing. Now, before we get into the details, Hodi, if you love Eagles football, if you bleed green and want to be part of this growing community, make sure to hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and join the conversation in the comments. Because what we're about to discuss isn't just another front office decision. It's a statement, a new era, a break from tradition. And we want to hear what you think about it. Let's dive into it. The Philadelphia Eagles, led by the ever-strategic Howie Roseman, may have just rewritten their own draft playbook. With the 31st pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Eagles selected Jihaad Campbell, a linebacker out of Alabama with top-tier talent and explosive upside. Now, for casual observers, this might seem like just another late first-round selection. But if you know anything about the Eagles' history, you know this isn't just a pick, it's a seismic shift. Let's put this into perspective. Philadelphia hasn't drafted a true linebacker in the first round since 1979. That's over 4 decades, a generation of treating the linebacker position as an afterthought on draft night. The Eagles have consistently focused on other areas: trenches, wideouts, corners, quarterbacks. But linebackers, traditionally those guys were found in the middle rounds, in bargain bins, or picked up in free agency. But Jihaad Campbell changed that. Described by multiple scouts as a potential top 10 talent, Campbell inexplicably slid down the draft board. Concerns about durability and a shoulder injury raised red flags for some teams. But the Eagles, true to their calculated opportunistic style, saw value where others saw risk. According to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, this pick represents the Eagles breaking precedent. And he's not wrong. They are retooling by taking young, talented players on defense, Fowler said. They now have at least 7 defensive starters on rookie contracts. Jihaad Campbell was great value. Some teams had him rated as a top 10 talent in the entire draft. This isn't just a smart pick. It's a strategic move by a front office that understands where the league is headed. Youth, speed, versatility, value. And let's talk about the influence of defensive coordinator Vic Fangio, the mastermind, who led the Dolphins' defense to elite status and helped sculpt Denver's once-feared unit, is now in charge of developing this young, explosive core. When Howie Roseman makes a move like this, he's not just betting on talent, he's betting on Fangio's ability to mold that talent into game-changing production. Think about it. Zach Bourne, now a paid linebacker in midnight green, represents another part of this philosophical shift. The Eagles aren't just grabbing high-profile defenders, they're investing in them, financially, strategically, and with full confidence that Fangio can unlock their full potential. What's even more intriguing is the timing. In a league where defense often plays second fiddle to flashy offensive numbers, the Eagles are going against the grain. While teams load up on wide receivers and quarterbacks, Philly is fortifying its defense. And they're doing it with purpose, because they've seen how quickly games can turn when you have playmakers flying around the field on the other side of the ball. And let's be honest, the Eagles' defense needed fresh legs. After a rollercoaster 2024 season where inconsistencies on defense cost us momentum, and let's be real, maybe a deeper playoff run, this kind of retooling is exactly what fans have been begging for. Now, with Jihaad Campbell joining, a core of young, hungry defenders, the Eagles are building something that could be terrifying, not just this year, but for years to come. So what does this mean for the Eagles moving forward? It means the team isn't afraid to break its own rules. If it means getting better, it means we've entered a new phase in the Howie Roseman era, one where flexibility and bold decisions take center stage. And most importantly, it means the Eagles are building a defense that's not just competitive, but potentially dominant. We've got rookies ready to explode onto the scene. We've got Fangio in the lab, scheming up ways to make opposing quarterbacks miserable. And we've got Jihaad Campbell, a potential star, anchoring the next generation of Eagles linebackers. Philadelphia is going all in on a defensive identity. And if it pays off, this could be the start of something very special. But now it's your turn, Eagles Nation. What do you think about this move? Are you excited about Jihaad Campbell? Do you believe this marks a true change in the way our front office approaches defense? Or are you still skeptical about drafting a linebacker in the first round? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't hold back. Let's hear your take. Are we witnessing the start of a new defensive dynasty? Or do the Eagles still have more work to do? As always, thank you for tuning in to Eagles Nest News. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss a beat as we break down every move this franchise makes. From the war room to the field, from draft night to game day, this is where real Eagles fans stay informed. Fly, Eagles, fly, and we'll see you next time.